This patch is awesome. They made sweeping item and class balance changes. There's a new crafting system that includes the crafting of legendary items. They fully fleshed out the Warlock. There's new and revamped map layouts. They combine the map pools of High Roller and Normal. There have been UI and graphical improvements. The game could not feel more fresh and alive. I'm almost not even sure where to begin, but let's talk about the Warlock because the Warlock is sick. So they added 8 new spells to the Warlock. The first one is Bolt of Darkness. This is kind of basically a dark ice bolt. It does a small amount of damage, has a pretty decently fast travel time. It's going to be a nice little mid-range poke tool. They added Bloodstained Blade, which gives you Bloodlust for 20 seconds, which gives you 5 attack power, and every time you swing your weapon, you lose 3 health. So this is interesting. I could see this being used against an enemy, but I think more likely it's going to be casted on a frontline barb or something like that, and will give him a little bit more power in his swings. You have Evil Eye. This thing is sweet, but probably bad. It summons a bat, like a demon bat that you can control and move around and fly and stuff. It doesn't seem to be able to do any damage, but it does have collision and it does have health. So if you want, I think you can probably chain lightning off of it. You can scout out the next room. You can look from above, see who's behind and positioning of enemies. Definitely a utility ability, but not exactly a huge game changer if you ask me. We have Ray of Darkness. This is a channeling ability that is basically a big laser beam. It looks sweet, but it doesn't do a lot of damage. I don't know how useful this is going to be, but we'll have to see how it scales with additional magic damage and whatnot. But yeah, it's kind of underwhelming if you ask me. We have Life Drain. Now this thing is broken. You have to stand in place, so I don't know if it's going to be an ability you necessarily use mid-combat, but you can drain off of enemies, you can drain off of mobs, you can drain off of your own Hydra that you summon, which is crazy, and even at base, with no additional magical healing besides the Vampirism perk, which we'll talk about later, you actually heal more than the life cost of the abilities, so you don't even need Curse of Pain and Torture Mastery. You can just heal using Life Drain if you want to. We have Flame Walker, which is crazy cool. For 6 seconds, each step you take drops a trail of fire on the ground, and that burning ground will damage anything that walks over it. 5 damage per 0.2 seconds, which is actually a huge amount of damage. So you're going to be doing 25 damage a second if anyone's standing on this. And you can use it while using Phantomize. So you can cast this, cast Phantomize, be completely invulnerable, walk through the entire enemy team, and run back to your homies with complete safety. Crazy. It also doesn't hurt you when you walk over it either. So kind of really good if you ask me. And we also don't know how it's going to scale yet. If this scales with additional magic damage, it's going to do a bonkers amount of damage. Eldritch Shield. So this ability grants you a shield that protects you from 40 magic damage. It's basically a protection potion, or the protection ability from Cleric, but it only works for magic damage, and if it breaks, you get an additional bonus to your next dark spell. Last but not least, we have Hydra. Summon a Hydra that fires fireballs at hostile targets. This basically functions like the Diablo 2 Hydra, if you're familiar with that. It summons 3-headed dragon on the ground that has collision and has health and has all those other things that shoots fireballs at enemies. It looks sweet. It costs a lot of health. It costs 15 health, but it's a summon, so you can cast Curse of Pain on it. You can cast Life Drain on it. You may be able to cast other buffs on it, like Eldritch Shield or something like that. It has collision, and it's pretty large, so you can kind of block people in doorways or in corners or something. Its tracking is not very good, but it does 15 damage per fireball, so it's going to hit pretty hard, and it obviously has infinite meme potential too. As for the perks, they added this perk, Curse Mastery, which increases the duration of all curses by 30%. There's only 2 curse skills, Curse of Weakness and Curse of Pain. I think this is really just so you can cast Curse of Pain and heal off of stuff for longer. I mean, Curse of Weakness is pretty mediocre if you ask me, so I don't know if anyone's going to be taking this. But it's there. Maybe you can find a way to use it. The other perk they added is Vampirism. Increases magical healing by 20%. This is going to be awesome. This takes gear pressure off of Warlock. You don't have to have as much gear to get going with your magical healing stat. Maybe you can prioritize damage on your abilities or on your gear slots a little more, so you don't have to stack magical healing everywhere. But if you do, you're going to get even more from it now too, which is kind of crazy. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is how they changed the vendors and what that's going to do to the economy and how you're going to gear. So first and foremost, the vendors have a massive amount of stuff now. You'll notice they also seem to always have blues and purples in their inventory, which I think is really good for two reasons. One, I don't think interacting with trade is that fun for me, or at least it's sort of purposefully cumbersome to make it a little bit harder to get completely kitted if you have money. So this should allow you to kind of just grab a spellbook and go, which I find very good. What I think this is going to do is sort of anchor the price of a lot of gear lower. If you can buy a purple spellbook from a vendor for 200, why would you ever buy a base purple spellbook from trade for 300? It really just doesn't make sense to do. So gear should be more accessible than ever before. The other thing about gear that is massive is a lot of items now have base attributes that they didn't before. So these leather legs before just had armor, now they have will as well. These leather gloves used to just have agility, now they have agility and will. So it should be a lot easier to get your base attributes now than ever before. Also, the higher rarity items have higher amounts of attributes on them. So these leather legs, for example, if they were gray, would only have 1 strength. However, since they're green, they have 2 strength. These padded legs are blue. They have 2 knowledge instead of just 1. So that's kind of interesting. That should make luck matter more. They did also add a larger luck potion, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I think this is kind of more of a rich get richer thing, but regardless, rarity matters more than ever before. They also added a whole host of items you can craft, which not only can you craft more stuff, but the crafted items are straight up just better than what you could buy here. So these riveted gloves, if they were blue, would have 2 strength. If you look at the equivalent riveteds in the shop, in the crafting shop, they have 3 strength, which is higher, and they have magical healing on them. So you'll get things like these legs where if these were blue, they'd only have 2 strength, but because they're these crafted ones, they have an additional stat and the strength is higher too. So this really incentivizes crafting. These aren't even that expensive. These are 2 grave dust and 5 wolf pelt. That's going to be crazy. Crafted items are going to be bis for pretty much every single slot. So that's going to make it feel more rewarding to kill some of these mobs that drop these items. Normally when I would see grave dust, I wouldn't pick that up. But nowadays, I'm probably going to have a little amount set aside in my stash just in case a really good crafted item pops up in the shop. So I think that is super interesting. It should make just straight up PvEing a lot better. I mean, look, you can even craft cloaks now. It should make PvE feel better and not just a hassle in between you and the next PvP fight, in theory. Oh, and it would be a crime not to talk about the legendary items you can craft now, the legendary weapons. So yeah, you can craft legendary weapons that are better than the purples. This rapier only has 24 damage. This legendary one has 25. I know that's not a big difference, but that's just because it's a rapier. On these other items, it will be more significant. So these crafting materials are definitely more rare. Like this one, for example, the kind of vial of red stuff here, that is demon blood, I believe, and it only drops from Inferno demon berserkers that I've seen anyway. So I would expect those mobs to be sort of more sought after. Maybe if you're playing the game right, you're killing as many of those as you can so you can craft some of these crazy items. Now, that being said, the power of legendary items, the power of high-grade weapons specifically, has been brought down in this patch. They kind of squished the damage rolls from the top down so that there's less difference in between gray, white, and green, and purple and orange. I think this is a healthy thing for the game. It doesn't feel great when you get rolled by a team, you inspect them and realize their gear is so ridiculous that there was not really a way you could have won that fight unless you played it absolutely perfectly. This should make it so that the gap between the most geared players and the least geared players is a little bit smaller. That being said, some of this crafted gear is a little bit crazy. The fact that you can get so many more stats and armor if you have nice crafted stuff than if you get stuff you find in the dungeon is going to kind of push the other direction, but that's not something I can tell just by looking at it. We're gonna have to wait and see how that feels over time. So this video is already getting kind of long, so I'm gonna motor through some of the other changes here and my thoughts on them. Wizard has been nerfed mostly because they added a massive amount of MR on all the kinds of different gear now. I am very sad about this. I usually play a lot of Wizard, but they nerfed Fireball at the same time as they added MR options for every single class, so Wizard shouldn't be quite as deadly as he used to be. The Bard now has to use Knowledge to equip more spells. He has spell capacity. I don't really know why a lot of people were calling for this change. It does nerf the Bard at the low end. However, a lot of people are saying the class is dead. I think those people are foolish. The amount of additional attributes you can get now means that the scaling on your spells and the amount that you can cast, the speed at which you can cast, is likely going to be higher now than it used to be. It's going to hurt for a little bit until you get your gear, but once you get your gear rolling, I'm pretty sure Bard's actually going to be better than it used to be. Let's see what else. Ranger triple shot, or rather quick shot, now scales based on your bow. So a longbow only shoots 2 times, a recurve bow shoots 3 times, and a survival bow shoots 4 or 5 times. I can't quite remember, but that's a pretty big change. They totally revamped a lot of the maps and the map layouts, which I think is great. They combined the high roller and normal map pools, so there's going to be a lot more variety in the maps that you can get. Amazing change. The module reworks look amazing. I think they added a lot more embellishments to just the ground and the environment and the ceilings. It looks so gorgeous. It really feels so fresh. They reduced the cost of High Roller back to 100 gold in the 3-man version. In Goblin Caves, I believe it's 75. They also reduced the players per match in normals to 15. They also removed the gold hoard from normal bosses. I haven't actually seen if it's in the High Roller bosses yet, but I'm sure I will soon, and maybe you guys can let me know in the comments. But yeah, gold farming should be a little bit more difficult now. I think probably that means prices of items are going to go down. That means the worst items you're going to want to trade is going to go up a little bit just because the trade fee is going to be more impactful. The gold hoard was replaced with a chest that has a few good items in it. So yeah, maybe they're trying to make you farm gold more in High Roller. I'm not sure. We're going to have to wait and see just what this change actually does. I think I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. There's honestly too many changes to go over in just one video. So if there's anything else you want me to comment on or you just want to discuss, let me know down in the comments. If you made it this far, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.